So good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to welcome you back in the first session of the post-lunch session here at Pack Impression, day 2. We are having here a wonderful panel from across Asia. We have people from Singapore, India, and it's going to be very interesting. For a change, I'm a part of the panel this time, so I'm not going to go hide behind the screen. I'm going to be participating with each and every one. So this session is going to be basically speaking on innovation in design and how design has played a role in part of building brands. I think that's what we're going to talk about. And we got a really very, very talented and diversified team here. And I'm first pleased to introduce Mandeep Singh. So Mandeep is the executive director, creative director of Last Mile Solutions, and he has been in the creative side of business for several years, working with global companies, agencies like Cheil, Ogilvy, and it's my pleasure to have Mandeep as a co-moderator for this session.
Yeah, hi. Hi, hello everybody.
Then we have David Nicosia. David is a name which doesn't need any introduction in the packaging design world. He has been a pioneer in building many great packaging brands. He's a co-founder and CEO of Nice. He shuttles between New York and Singapore, and he's stuck in Singapore for some time now. Great to have you, David. It'll be wonderful to hear from you as we go around. Then we have Manu Chaudhary from CDC Printers, an export-oriented print and packaging company. We have to hear from him from his own mouth as to what he does. Then we have Damika. Damika is he comes from the tiny country of Sri Lanka down south, but he has been, I came to know that he has been servicing customers across 52 countries out of Sri Lanka. And he was an award-winning, design house. He's got some wonderful initiatives which he has done, which I'm going to talk specifically during the talk. He has been essentially pioneering building brands out of companies which are really in remote parts of the world, and he has been taking these brands across the global markets. And last but not the least, we have Ms. Chong. She is manager in charge of production and client servicing in Rex, which is a Japanese printing, packaging, and prototyping company. Very, very interesting service which they provide, and I will let her speak about when we get into the introduction. So, Mandeep, why don't we start? Why don't you say a few things about who you are, and what do you think, and how we go about this particular.
Sure. Thanks for giving me this opportunity, Pankaj. So, to introduce myself, my name is Mandeep, and I've been in this industry of advertising, and I would say not only print. I talk about advertising for the last 25 years. So I basically come from the ATL, that is above the line communication. But when, over the years, when we get involved in work, we get involved in all aspects. And working with Pankaj, working with Last Mile, interacting with him, come to realize that packaging is one of the biggest, I would say, component in making a product successful. So this is about me. I'm an advertising professional for the last 25 years and very happy to be in this panel.
Yes, David.
Hello, my name is Davide Nicosia. I am, as we heard, but I don't feel that fame. But yes, I've been in this business for almost 30 years, and I'm kind of feel very fortunate to be part of the panel. But what I do is that I basically create. I'm a bit more like a plastic surgeon, I gotta say, because I help brands to evolve to current time, to become contemporary. So, and it's been about a large scale, very large corporations, such as P&G, Ferrero, to name a few. But it is what I do is like the creative process of the brand evolution, which also include the packaging and also articulation and upstream level for the creativity that eventually gets to the downside, which is get the downstream, which is the creative production of whatever these ideas behind big brands, which we do for the consumer market. And the offices that we do really are located both Japan, but our headquarters in the United States. We have offices in Europe and I guess Singapore, as we are in Thailand.
Thank you. Great to have you, David. Manu?
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me part of this panel. It looks like I'm the youngest one over here, and I have around 5 to 6 years of experience in printing. By heart, I'm an engineer. I'm a computer science engineer, but I did my master's in print media, where my specialization was in color science. Then I joined the Family Printing Press, and we are one of the most awarded print companies in India. And we specialize in books, commercial printing. Just last year, we got into the field of packaging. So we are new to packaging, and we are very innovative, and we try to do all kinds of stuff in at least cardboard packaging. Anyways, thank you for having me part of this panel.
Welcome, welcome, Manu. We'll look forward to interacting with you. Yes, Damika. Damika, your mic is mute.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Pankaj, and I welcome everybody. So my name is Damika Sirivardhana. So I started my design business when I was 16. I started Design Logics. So we have evolved tremendously over the years. So I've been in the industry for the past 20 years now or more. And so we are in, so we started my career, I started as a designer, but now we have evolved. Now we are into more financial services, as well as we are doing total solutions for companies. So we do design, we make design key component on transforming companies. Now post-COVID era, we are facing, so most of the banks are working in Sri Lanka with us. So we are taking customers from the banks which are affected by COVID and which are being non-performing, and we are transforming. So we have done almost 1.8 billion worth of transformations within this period, actually.
Wow.
So which is, and we are doing a lot of innovative stuff. So we are first time in the country, we are creating an SME incubator, which is funded by Design Logics. And bringing in product traceability to all the farmers, and we are working with the largest retailers in the country and overseas as well, actually. So that's what we kind of do, I believe.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, Sisi, your mic is mute. Yes.
Hello everyone, I'm Sisi Chong. Okay, I actually started from pre-press, color separation, menu separation, like, longer years back. So I ever work in printing as well, and design agency, and also our adaptation. So now I'm currently with Rex. Officially, our company name is Kotopugi Seihan Printing, Japan-based. So we have office in our HQ in Osaka. We have also plant in Tokyo, okay, and Shanghai. So we have also have office in Vietnam, and in Singapore, we only do prototyping of mainly for packaging. Okay, now we are helping our client to achieve their design idea. So if let's say if they have a initial design, normally they have a few options. So when they haven't decided which option to go, so they will have to do some prototyping with the real, maybe the real product to decide and do some research. So and at the end, they will decide which option to go. So based on our, background, company background, and also knowledge, we can help the client to achieve their expectation with mass production. So during the mock-up creation. Yeah. Okay.
Excellent. Excellent. So we'll come back to each one of you. Mandeep, why don't you set the ball rolling in terms of your thought process as to how packaging, design, communication, what is the whole mix around this whole marketing mix?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Pankaj. You see, over the years, packaging has become more and more important for us, So it is a popular saying that you can't judge a book by its cover, That will be true in the case of the literary word. But in the case of products, that's not the case. You have to, people tend to judge a product by its cover. And when I say cover, it means packaging, because we may spend hours on, creating a product. We may spend many hours creating a advertising or campaign around it. But the moment of truth comes when the consumer sees your product for the fraction of that second in a shop or in the shelf, or these days increasingly now on the net. So that moment of truth is when a consumer decides, yes, hello, this is the product I want to buy. And that is where the packaging comes, a very pivotal role, I would say, because it conveys so many things. So I would like to start with this, this panel discussion, by touching upon the point that how packaging design, has emerged or is like a very potent medium of communication. You look at the product, you decide about it in a fraction of a second. So how important, this design comes into play. And I'm sure, like with all the panelists here, there are a lot of science which goes into it. Like if I look at a product, what is the first thing I'm going to see? What is the second thing I'm going to see? And what are the colors I have to, use? If I'm talking about health product, what is the kind of colors I'm going to use? If I'm talking about, say, luxury product, cosmetic product, what is the kind of color and design I'm going to use? So if I can set the ball rolling, I would like to ask a question that when it comes to packaging, what is the first thing which comes to a consumer's mind? Which catches attention?
David, would you like to attempt that? What is the first thing that comes to a consumer in terms of packaging?
I think we can speak for an hour about this topic, but it became extremely challenging as a game. I gotta say that, it's because of the amount of competitive situation that you go on shelf. Number one, I would say what is the first main purpose is that if there is a brand which is an existing brand, then it's about this kind of familiarity and trust. But most important is that what is the brand trying to say? And exactly right is the packaging is what you end up taking home. And the moment that you make that decision is really in your mindset. So you kind of have an idea of acquisition of some kind of attention, which is true. It's in a millisecond. It's almost like I'm looking for something which is going to help me. And that is the one consumer. The other one is going directly to a shelf with the purpose that they need to say a shampoo. So the most important vehicle that we learn, which is true, is to be extremely brilliant in every single way. Is that, does it feel that is right for the category that I'm selling to it? So it has to be intuitive in multi-way. So you apply cognitive science and as well intelligence that you have to sort of almost, if there will be the best package of all is the one that you basically don't have to read anything. So, that one first moment of truth that you can relate to it is the fact that, I get the feeling of what that is going to do to me if I buy it, and what it does is the purpose that I want to meet. So that is the biggest thing, is that this package today, it becomes to be your advertising, your persona. Is almost like you want to be a reliable and trusted friend. And then you can go back to it, if there is a way to do it right, you kind of win also with the moment that you take it home and actually use whatever that product is. But the biggest achievement is that you got to really understand how this product get home there and what did I do right. So yes, in the context of where you put it for sale, either e-commerce or shelf, or it could be even, a home shop, you got to be able to articulate this sort of message. So as to be, number one, it's like to get the right category correctly, and then to grab the attention that you can trust the product. And then if there's the element of familiarity that it connects to something that you have used in the past, then you have the confidence toward the brand, or at least you drive trials if it's something new. To me, those are major. And then, of course, all of this has to articulate it in a very appealing style. So yes, you have to be extremely intelligent to grab that attention. So you have to be focused on whatever you're trying to sell to that target. But most important is that you have to be capable to communicate, and it has to be like a very connected to the visual experience that you get in that fraction of a second. It's what I'm trying to sell. So that purpose has to be there. Those are.
Okay, so maybe Damika, I'll ask you a question related to this. You have been, in the packaging industry for so long and working from home, Sri Lanka, abroad. Uh, when you start looking at evolution of packaging of a particular SKU or a brand, right? What has been the consideration in each change? Have you had experience where you can talk about handling a particular brand for, let's say, 15 years, and let's say 10, 15 years, it has gone through, let's say, 4 or 5 times of change. What has triggered those changes? Or what were the briefs given by the brand which enabled you to do certain innovation? What was those trigger points?
So thank you, Pankaj. Pankaj, initially I would like to say now, generally in Sri Lanka, with most of the customers who we have worked, so we have worked from bottom up actually. So most of the customers that we have worked are very small companies when I started the company. So actually now, though I studied design in London, but we were trained to follow a brief, but no brief came to us. So we had to create our own brief. So that evolution of how do we actually, it's now packaging has been part of our journey, but packaging has been, of course, a driver. But for us, it was more towards a business solution than actually a packaging solution. And how do we achieve a particular ROI? How do you create? How do you keep a factory running? And we need to create value at the packaging end and value addition. So basically what our evolution has been is working in Sri Lanka is how do we add value to these agri-based products and which are for manufacturers. Now mostly what happens is, I think in Singapore and in other countries, you are working for big brands and you create the brand for these brands. And they are probably getting the product from third-party suppliers or the manufacturers. So where I was mostly involved is actually working with directly with the manufacturer, where we try to reduce the trader in between. And how do you add value from the farm to the shelf? So my space I play is actually is farm to the shelf. So within that space, we have given solutions to bridge that gap. So basically now in-house, we build prototyping, we have in-house, printing, we have in-house. So most of our vertical integration, the approach that we have done is internally actually. So now when we take packaging in today's context, is packaging is not just the packaging now. What can the packaging do more for you? Who would be the farm? Are we, when we are selling a product, are we giving a fair share to the farmer? Are we giving a fair share to the consumer? I mean, a fair share to the manufacturer. So those are the aspects that we work with. So now, especially after post-COVID, I think a lot of the businesses had problems in connecting the supply chains and how do we reach the markets. So within that, so most now what our main customer base is actually the banks. So the banks are giving us customers and we are giving a total solution to the customers. How do we turn them around and packaging becomes a solution? So basically now what I see is there's an evolution from the printer's perspective is also changing. The advertising and the packaging designer perspective is also changing. So it's a kind of a big evolution that is happening, and I think we are joining the bandwagon and we lead that change, I believe. So that is what I believe, Pankaj. That's a different aspects to packaging, I think, than what you see in US and in Singapore too, where we are actually mostly in right at the root. So it's a total different aspects. What a customer comes over there to, I think, in Sri Lanka actually.
Okay, I mean, just taking that, say for example, Sisi, in your role, most of the time you get maybe a design comes from somewhere else and you got to develop a prototype. So what are the typical challenges that you face in developing that prototype when unique designs and formats comes? What are the challenges that you typically get?
The challenging, I think, is sometimes the expectation from the client and the design agency are different. So of course the brief was from the client. Okay, so the design agency create the design based on the brief from the client, but the outcome and design, and the design mind, they want to achieve their design like to the best. But at client side, actually they want to cost control, and they need to go to more realistic, because it's now like printing still got some limitation, especially for the big organization. They have some like pointed printer. It's not like the project can go to anywhere. So in prototype, we have to understand really fully, completely from two-sided, so to so-called balance. What can we produce the best and also achievable for the mass production? So it's like, for example, like they want to have some very, very special finishing, well, based on the design. But in reality, maybe mass production cannot be achieved. So in this case, we have to think of some solution to help to suggest to client. Maybe we can do some another action, or make use of the color to do some simulation of the effect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is this Manu? Do you agree to something like this? Do you get these kind of challenges?
Absolutely. She's said almost a lot of things that I wanted to say as well. I have one box in front of me. This was given to from a tea customer. So they wanted to have 6 different flavors. Now, if I have to open this, I won't be able to reform it. So I'm not opening it right now. But in the open sheet, it's a big sheet, and it is impossible to fold it and so that the customer can sell it to their clients.
Okay.
It's like that. I mean, this is not scalable. If they want thousands and thousands of quantities of these, I mean, it not be practically possible to supply in a given timeline and within the given cost constraints about something like this. But because some of these are new startups who are selling online, where the volumes are not very high currently, this can be done by hand, and this can be done very nicely, and it can help the brand quite a lot. But then, as ma'am said, we have to think about in terms of scalability. If it goes up in volumes, how would you be able to do it? So we need to think. We have to find some other process, some other changes, so that we keep the client's brief and the requirements and their the thought process that the client has intact, while somehow be able to make it in a machinable manner, so that it's scalable in future.
Interesting. In fact, Mandeep, sorry, I'm not trying to hijack your session, but there are very good points which are coming up. In the previous session, we had some mainline agencies, and we had people from digital printing, and they were talking about a very interesting trend. This particular gentleman who was there, he has been managing director with O&M in France. He had Shell, TW. So he is a real hardcore advertising guy, and he's now having a startup which is essentially helping small companies to compete with big brands, because they are direct to consumers through e-commerce, right? And this is exactly what I think Manu was talking about. They're very innovative. And then we had a shopper marketing guy. He was asking questions: are you seeing innovative designs in the shelf? He said, no, I'm not seeing it, right? Because what happens, a large company will not be able to do the kind of innovation which is required, because as CC was saying, maybe it's not feasible. Now, what is the role of design in this? You have a great client who gives a open brief. Designers love to play with open briefs. They come up with something great, and it's not going to the shelf. So what's the story? David, where will it meet? Innovation versus feasibility of production.
I think there are 2 different type of clients, the way I see it. Again, without saying names, but there is the one that are corporation which they have the large scale requirements. They You have to be extremely smart and really touch every single, almost like a perfection level that has to be scalable and has to be within budget, within the time. And those are also driven by a fiscal year ending, which is also happening on every single year. And I think that is that definitely you have to be applying both this ability and agility of creative executionable solutions. And indeed, like what she said, is correct. So we have a super high expectation to achieve this ultimate, because we believe in every single little detail how is that supposed to communicate the package, and it's extremely difficult. Rex, they're doing an amazing job on this topic, and it's great to have them also within our kind of work how we do together. But then there are also those other clients which are a little more luxury-wise, they own personally by a family or something, and those type of guys, they're a little more relaxed. Not to say, because everybody's also there for the same kind of financial result and to really make it successful, but then because they have this time on their side, they don't have the pressure of on a yearly sort of fiscal year ending, or like share people that are really after to see the profit margin in a much more aggressive style. And those people, they spend the time. I could give an example like Ferrero. If you look at the packaging for Rocher and so on, we didn't do that. But what is the kind of amount of technology which everything looks like it was end wrapped one by one, but you're speaking about a machine which is actually speeding these things at the speed of light. We're speaking about, if not thousands of pieces. But this ability to get there, it did require a little bit more intricate, coordination of really bring an idea which looks totally delusional and bipolar in its purpose, because it has to be financially rewarding. But then you have to also foresee maybe the first 10 million chocolate pieces, they're not going to make any profit margin. But then after that, we're going to cash in big time, because we have it, right? And so that is the awkward situation. So I think that you can actually, whatever we see is this ridiculous request. There is a solution. So typically it's both either money or it's time, but definitely you can actually scale pretty much anything, and we can see that by many other type of industry, not just packaging. So it's just a bit like, okay, you actually scale it to the purpose that is going to meet your forecast and your long-term plan. So I think that is the adjustment. It's sort of like I want to say like the Socrates opportunity, where you can actually be taking something which is going to give you a reward if you scale it properly, and if you kind of apply to the right place, and then the ecosystem is fed.
Okay, my last question, Mandeep. Then it's all yours.
Yeah, please. Please.
Dhammika, you said that you have most of the things in-house, upstream, downstream. You design, you do production, everything. Maybe it's a very rare kind of a business, which is, you excel in design. You have done great production. You have won awards. Now you have diversified into doing packaging as a financial solution. So you bring a lot of things. Now, maybe that's not possible for everyone, but my question is something different. Does having a complete integrated approach to a customer, does it give you an edge because you can do everything in-house rather than being a specialist production house or a specialist design house? Does it give you an advantage?
So basically, Pankaj, to answer your question, so when I started my career, so I was only doing design, and it was in my bedroom actually. So where all my problems was getting my first print. So I had to stay like 12 hours to get a print. Then came, how do you do prototyping? So what happened over the years is basically when something took more time, and when scalability is happening, so when you get a lot of customers in, and then you can start, then there are a lot of things you can start affording actually.
Okay.
And a startup. So then eventually we ventured into investing on our own equipment. And so that is what, so basically for us, I think for a customer who comes to us, they get great value because, whatever we design, they can see a prototype in 2 hours. Because it's all in-house. And also the fact that, there are, a lot of the customers, they're very concerned about giving out, because you come up with a special design and they don't want anybody to see. So that part is also covered. Then the other part is when now the cost for a manufacturer or someone like that to get into the shelf, if you don't have the whole everything in-house, then the cost per product is increased tremendously, because what we do is production prototyping. So eventually for the customer, we get them to get a PO or a purchase order on based on our production samples. So which is also another financial tool that we bring into the whole mechanism actually.
Okay.
So then eventually what happens is, then when you want to produce, so there are a lot of guys who produces 1 million, 10,000, 50,000, but you have only very few people who produce only one. So
Right.
that is the space I played in, and the fact that we want to help the less fortunate, or the grower or the farmer. We are now, our focus is actually helping uplift the farmers, the lower end of the, because I mean the value chain, they don't get the proper value for their produce, and that had been my goal from my start, and we want to help and uplift the farmers for them to get a better value. So in that scenario, our whole integrated solution helps, because we can keep the cost down. All that is happening, so that, I mean, I believe that gives you the answer why we did it like that.
Excellent. Okay, Mandeep, all yours.
Yeah. Just I was just waiting for this opportunity. Just this question in my mind, Sometime back, I saw an ad by a textile company that they come out with a cloth which is COVID resistance, I would say, which doesn't attract germs, So I was thinking, I want to ask Manu, like, does he get, briefs from clients in terms of creating special surfaces or special ink or special printing or special, I would say, product, which are like more useful in the post-COVID era? They might say, somebody must have developed, okay, this surface attracts less germs, or they can allocate a particular point from where to pick the product, the package, which is safer. So has this innovation, has like clients have started asking about this innovation, Manu?
Very, very interesting question that you asked. I have to write this down. I think we can put some kind of innovation and sell it to the client. And we put a small area in the box. If you touch it from here, the germs will not transfer it. And we have not received such requests yet. But if
maybe we can come out with a patent on that.
Standpoint of view, if I sell these to the clients, I mean, I'm sure they'll be very impressed, because it's a very, very valid request, and it's a
yeah, so we can come out with a patent on that, Manu. Okay, so
wait, I think we lost Manu.
Okay, have we?
Continue, Mandeep.
Yeah. And Damika, I would like to ask you something, like you said about farmers and all that, is it a trend among clients these days to come out with environmental sustainable packaging, which has less harm on the environment? Hello, Damika?
Hello.
Can you hear me? Were you able to hear my question?
Damika, could you hear Mandeep?
Yeah, hi. Now only I can hear you. Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't hear your question earlier. Sorry. Yes,
No, I'll repeat. Shall I repeat myself?
Yeah.
yes, please.
Yeah. So I was just asking this question. You were talking about the farmers and all that. So
Yes.
are the clients these days more, I would say, do they ask you to come out with environment sustainable, packaging, which has less damage, or recycled product, that kind of thing? Because I remember reading an article somewhere that in some, European country, they said, let's do away with cartons for the packaging for a toothpaste, and that way we're going to save a lot for the environment. So what do you have to say on that? Like, do clients tell you to design such a kind of packaging?
Yes, actually, we are working on a very large brief, actually, which one of the largest manufacturers locally of biscuits, actually. So they have asked us to design environmentally friendly packaging, and they want to convert everything over 5 to 6 years, next 6 years. So like, it's a huge amount of SKUs. So we are coming up with different solutions in sustainability, because if you look at like the global market, like in 2025, even Aldi, like big supermarket chains in Europe, so they are trying to stop all plastic use in packaging. So now
Okay.
these are challenges which are now the manufacturers are facing and which we need to give solutions. So these are, I mean, it's happening and I think everybody should take part of it. And I think we need to take care of the earth and everybody. I mean, that's, I think as designers and packaging people, I think that's a big responsibility that we should take serious consideration of, I believe.
Okay.
So, David, I'll ask you a related question to this. What does, let's say, a strategic mainline design company like yours, what kind of inputs do you take from material suppliers or production houses in terms of what materials that needs to be used? Do you frequently do some benchmarking and try and incorporate those things? Because not all designs can be reproduced in all kind of material formats. So do you do some sort of a technical collaboration with material suppliers or production houses for design development?
In the past, a lot. I have to say the success of the company was really based on this. You know, we introduced like CK1, the Calvin Klein fragrance, into the fluting paperboard. It was based on ISO 2000, which back in the early, it was like 1990, when they spoke about they were looking at the future and eliminating all this plastic and things. So that was a genius idea for us. And we were able to sell it to the right client at the right time. So this kind of thinking and this partnership with a lot of suppliers has always been sort of like the success story behind what is happening to my agencies. Yes, you know, we still do it today. But, you know, as before we discussed, you know, actually there's this IP, like intellectual property consciousness of collaborative, you know, solutions which are meant to go from like this incubation of a good idea for sustainable purposes to the moment that it goes into even the, I guess, you know, the Rex or the CC that she has to be kind of take that to a different level. It is quite challenging. And I have to say is that, you know, while I was listening, also the fact that, you know, plastic, it does play a major role, you know, because a lot of products cannot be sold not with plastic. Now, the purpose is that what we're looking at is what kind of plastic we're using. So like, you know, to say the polymer, which could be straight from petroleum versus being recycled, that is, I think, where is like the most biggest objective that is coming up in 2025, 2030, and then even future, as we were thinking, totally eliminating it possibly by 2050. So there's an incredible opportunity how to evolve this collaborative sort of mission, because humanity really requires that. And it's extremely relevant today to jump into with this resilience opportunity. Specifically, I think within the panel, we all are become to be extremely responsible for driving this innovation. And yes, indeed, you know, this idea many times is actually very funny. I gotta say that is extremely awkward, because we always propose a lot of amazing innovation, but there is like this kind of also, because you're speaking about large scale, and it looks a bit like that if you introduce an innovation and that is a particular supplier, it looks like, you know, we're trying to have a bureaucratic interest into the financial grit of success, this type of relationship. So we try to keep a very democratic interest into how we intervene with this type of innovations, and we pass on to say the baton to the client and say, okay, this is what we're going to do in order to succeed in the next, you know, whatever X amount of years, and this we came up with a solution, but now please take it from here, make it happen. And that is the big question, right? But there are things which I think is very important for all of us to know, and this is quite recent news, like, so the European community is actually imposing panels, like you have nutritional facts today, which is like, there will be a must do, which is the information or whatever the package is going to become as a waste product once you're going to take it home. And that's going to be, it becomes to be a vehicle, which is extremely essential as well to consumers, because you'd be looking at a bottle and say, oh my God, this time it's going to be this much damage if I buy it. So, you know, and not everybody cares so much about sustainability as much we think. Everybody should, and we need to educate everybody by this problem, but it will become a super important vehicle, because the package is essentially transporting, I guess, the goods at home, right? So you end up being with this piece of something, whatever that is, liquid or a product. And I think that the responsibility begins to be sort of highlighted, and I can see how almost like our children will be educated by the schools, the fact that, they get to look into what is going to happen once I consume or take this product, because the amount of waste is humongous, and we got to definitely slow it down. So yes, innovation, it plays probably the biggest piece of why creativity, packaging are extremely quintessential to our humanity, because we were not going to stop. I mean, I really believe that a lot of these products that we're talking about, at least that I'm referring to, they're like as important as commodity, or part of the commodity channel, right? But to that level of humongous scale. And so the innovation is all got to be, I think it's fantastic when you have it in-house and you do everything. That is absolutely an amazing thing. But scary enough, I don't think some of our clients will ever be allowing us to do that. So it's just because despite the fact it fits the purpose to maintain IP, intellectual property of any idea, but the fact that, it also limits the potential of the idea itself. So collaborative situations are probably going to be as important as this ecosystem that needs to take place in the near future. So I think we all have to become sort of more involved into bring up real solutions.
So this collaborative approach, is it going to be on an equity basis, or is it going to be an arm's length basis between upstream and downstream companies to provide a total solution?
Well, I think actually the COVID is very weird, right? So the COVID itself is kind of really giving us, maybe nobody has kind of really accept the fact there's going to be economic tsunami here, but we're going to have to really figure out how to kind of streamline this process from almost like, let's go back to the consumer, what they need to take home. And then how do we make the most effective way to produce this something and make realistically hit all this emotion, what we're talking about, to make the consumer to buy and feel the confidence this is the product that they want. So, I mean, there is a lot of like orchestration, and I got to say, and it's going to be sort of, and it's not an AI, it's a human thing. We have to be sort of like, really quickly adjust to this new normal. And I think that is the key. So it will happen. There is no undoubtedly. I think, the way that we're going to be capable to collaborate is really, and that's why I say actually, if also with the internet itself, now every single initiative, like I'm listening to you guys, I mean, it's sort of, we all kind of hit in a scale, which is a global level. So no matter if your product is going to be Sri Lanka from a farmer, but the reality that we are building behind is that how this is going to impact many different channels, potentially to take the Sri Lanka product, which is happening today already, and go to a global level for distribution. So do we make the ecosystem extremely effective? I mean, funny enough, there are new education as far as university, even in Italy. I pride to say that Italy is the first one that invented university, but was the most retarded one to say, because we're still from day one when we invented it as a system. But at least there are some new things that are happening, which is like promoting circular economy, like these new faculties, which are basically all based how to make things extremely effective, because it is a true necessity, and embrace all of these items that we do today.
Excellent. So Mandeep, we have got a couple of questions from the audience. Shall we take that?
That will be good, please.
Okay, so here's a design student. It's a very general question, but it will be good to hear. Maybe Damika, you can try this. So as a design student, what skills one can learn to keep up with the current situation where demands are limited? What new skills should a design student learn to be relevant when there are less demand of people? I mean, that's what he's basically perhaps meaning. As a design,
I think in today's context, I think finance is one of the main factors for everything. So even as a design student, so basically, like when I was a student, and my experience was that we looked at the ROI that means the ROI for a customer, the return on investment for the customer. If we always think of that aspects when we are designing packaging, that helps a lot for the customer as well as for the student. And then as a student, the biggest question is how much should we charge for a design? That was a big question I was also having at when I started. So the scalability is because right now design is getting sold at very cheap prices because of the internet. So everybody is willing to do designs for like very low amounts, which is not sustainable and which won't be sustainable for the industry as well. So the thing is, when we design something, what is it? What is the value for the customer, and what is the return that we are bringing into the company? And that kind of an equation should be the one that they should be looking at, because from day one as a student, that's my view. Pankaj, does it make sense?
Let's ask CC. What will you recommend a new design student? What new skills does he has to learn now? Your mic.
Okay, I think all of us agree that the market is really less demand on maybe design, or we can find a lot of things from internet. So if for me, I will encourage the new designer and especially students to learn, take this opportunity to learn more technical things, because technical can help design and also understand the market. And like for packaging, we have a lot of different kind of finishing in the market. So packaging is not only color, only like 4C, what they learn from school, like PMS, 4C, but also finishing, and finishing also more than gloss and matte. So of course, not really go and deep to detail for the technical, because it will really like impact or affect the creativity. But at least we know what is the market, what is the trend in the market. I think it will help, make this opportunity to learn something else. So after maybe this tough time is over, when you come back to design, then you know how to apply to this all special thing to your design.
Okay, that's interesting. It seems there are a lot of students in the crowd. There's another student coming up talking about, sometimes there's a challenge of materials and the weather situation plays a role. No design fits all. How to adapt? Please give me your take. Maybe Manu, you can talk about, hot weather, cold weather, outside design, packaging, what material, how do we use it? It's a day-to-day challenge.
Absolutely. Especially the different effects that we're doing. This most common one, such as lamination, because it's based on a wet-based glue. Most of the times when we're doing a wet lamination, the weather, the humidity can change the entire look and feel of the packaging. You can find blisters, you can find wrinkles or spots in lamination. Lamination is something which is been used for years and years, and still there are environmental factors which affect the quality of it. Again, there are inks, but there are inks, if you put it outside in the sunlight, it fades off much faster. So primary thing is, if we get in more details or more technical details about the materials that we're using, because all the ink suppliers, they will supply you what is the light fastness value of the particular ink that they have, the different brands of ink that they have, the light fastness values of those inks. So if you are aware, if the students are aware, or if the people who are requiring these kind of printings, they are aware of these are the specifications, these are the this is the light fastness value of the ink that we demand, and they put it up in the specification. Or rather, we as printing companies, we try to educate the customers that if you're making a poster which will be stuck outside during rains, this is the minimum light fastness value of the ink that you require. And so there are technical details. If we just have to go a little deep down, and rather than speak superficially, because environmental factors will always be there. It had always been there, and solutions have been made to take care of these. Just that we need to work harder and fight this.
Okay, the next one I'll give it to Damika. This is, I think, a question or an answer you give it to your clients every day. Design prototype has expense. How can one make sure that the cost is retrieved?
Oh, so actually, we basically bill it to the design, we don't charge it separately.
Okay.
So we bill it to the entire process and we give the free samples actually. We don't bill it separately.
And here's one lady sitting next to you. The only business is charging on prototyping. Excellent.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend anybody, but
solution.
No, I mean, let me try to understand that. I mean, whoever has asked this question, I do not know. Prototyping, for a few years, I worked in a 3D printing industry. If you look today, packaging prototyping or product prototyping, it's a massive industry. So what does prototype does? It essentially eliminates waste that can happen in a final production. So prototype is not a cost. It's a major investment that needs to be done to essentially, if you do some production run and it basically, if there's a mistake there, you lose millions. A prototype must just cost a few $100,000 or maybe sometimes few $100 also. So prototype is not an expense. So I don't think that needs to be looked from that perspective. There's one more. I do not know who will take this. It's a very beautiful question. Is edible packaging future in food industry? That means you make something which you can eat. Anyone has got any interesting idea, thought, knowledge about this? I don't know. I know cakes. Cakes are 3D printed, right? But anything which goes into the shelf, I do not know. It's
I heard of spoons and that can be eaten spoons, but not the packaging. Yeah.
3D printing can help. We can have an edible ink and we can create something out of it.
I know cakes are made out of 3D printing machine, but any consumer package which could be mass produced, edible, I don't know.
then it won't be edible because it will be exposed, right?
Exposed, yes. It basically defeats the whole purpose of packaging, primary purpose of packaging. Yes. Then let's talk about, is there a science behind design needs which are different for different products and different audience, like for children, it needs color, adults, it is aesthetics. Is there a science behind defining the design needs for different product categories? Is it an art or is it a science? David?
It's both. It's both. It's extremely important.
Give a little bit case study or something of that sort.
Well, I think that if you're just going to embrace category, I can give an example. Color color as a psychological connection to flavor. So yes, there is a science right there. You want to sell a berry, so you're going with the pink and reds, but simultaneously, color has a different play when you go into electronics. So yes, I mean there is a science. Is the actual the way that so we build. When we're speaking about intuition and familiarity into connecting points, so like, white gives purity. So it kind of helps things out to articulate a message connected to a product.
Okay. So in a strategic design project where you have a product packaging going into place, what kind of consumer insight research as a design company you demand from your customers?
You asking me?
Yes.
Well, again, it's like, we quickly have the tendency, and again, it's always collaborative, right? So like, since it was Rex, if we have a, qualitative to say test, maybe it doesn't quite get to even the prototyping, just as a conversation one-on-one with consumer, where we actually see what kind of, first of all, everything starts from, the concept, the fact from marketing question, which is like, how do we do a new product, and if there is an intention, that's the question. Then we step in with the answer. That's because we do branding portion of the work. So we say, this is how we're going to be approaching your question, and we give a solution. And that usually that gets tested because we need to really quickly identify if the direction is correct. So that is the strategy that comes to play. So based on that, and that kind of conversation is happening quite quicker and faster, but obviously now with the fact that people are not traveling much, you cannot really make these large consumer groups and so on. Maybe all of that is a big question itself. But that is the one thing that, everybody's sort of going through this type of process when we do, as in order to avoid to make the wrong investment, or at least, to skip this opportunity to fail on a launch. So everything has to be extremely measure to the milli, everything is, I guess, to be precise. So in order to anticipate potential expectation that they're going to be not met, this is where the strategy comes into play, and it has to be extremely articulated. And those elements that we discussed before, like, the color, emotion, or what is the expectation from the brief, has to be a key. So like, almost the criteria, which is sort of has to be met in every single type of request that has to be met. So every single, let's say that is a value, and message, and then, category, territory, geographical needs, could be also related to even like situation and setting, lighting, transportation, bulk, not bulk, all of this has to come to play. And then, obviously, we don't do the solution for everything ourselves. We try to encounter that kind of challenge. We try to deliver a solution, but then it's like an army, right? So everybody starts to be playing that execution. If there is a solution for every single criteria that we add as a related to that kind of making a success launch. And again, Rex, comes into play when we have to really figure out how to scale the print execution of a certain type of finishes or color or expectation for the consumer to really receive as a finished product versus just a prototype, which can be delusional.
Okay. This is a question which is from me. Maybe I'll address it to Manu. Packaging and point of sale plays a very, I would say very interlinked kind of a world, right? I do not know about other countries, but in Asia, today, point of sale is being driven by production companies, while packaging is being driven by design companies, where I believe there's a huge amount of design understanding that is required, connecting the packaging with the POS. What do you feel about it? You being a company which is in the production side of the business, I do not know what are your design capabilities, but how do you see this? Because I see this as a huge mismatch.
There has to be a lot of synergy between the point of sale and the packaging. I mean, there cannot be a disconnect between the two. If the two the designs or the two structures are mismatched, then it will be a big disaster for the brand.
Okay, so if I may understand, I'll tell you what is our personal. We are also a below the line agency, and so when we work with CPG brands, one of the first things that they said, can you give me some POSM solutions?
Right.
Okay. Now they're asking a word solution, where the expectation of the brand is you provide several concepts, and if they like it, they will do only a production of that. That whole design development part of it, there's no value of it, right? But that doesn't work in the packaging side. Packaging side, there's a complete industry involved in strategic design thought process. Why is the POSM not got developed that way? Because it's, again, I believe is a very critical component for the product. In fact, there was a session today where we are saying the entire communication aspect, right from ATL to from television, newspaper, below the line, POSM, packaging is all integrated, right? I mean, that solution is, we don't see that kind of an offering coming in. Why is the reason? I'm putting this question both to Dhammika and Manu. Why is today that kind of an approach for brands are not there? Is it because they don't think packaging as a part of the marketing mix? They take it specialized, or is it something else?
Okay, Pankaj, to answer your question, see, the scenario is, what happens is now a lot of the companies are doing different things in different parts. So there are POSM companies, then you have the packaging company, then you have the advertising company, and you have, web design company, all not interlinked. So the thing is, in that space, the collaborative approach, because everybody wants to have their own creativity. And especially in this part of the world, they don't follow the proper, like, the corporate guidelines for most of the products. So that is where the disconnect comes. So I believe. So actually that is also one reason, because what happens is when we go to a POSM guy, he wants to do what he can do and what we want, not what we want him to do. So that was the, actually that was it resulted is us starting actually most of the things in-house. So even we do the POSM also in-house now.
Okay. Excellent. Any closing? We have reached our time. I think it was very, very interesting. Mandeep, do you have some closing comments?
Oh, it was very interesting to interact with you all. And as we're going to see, the future is going to be packaging driven, in the sense like they'll become more sustainable, they'll become more technological, so I'm just looking forward to what all packaging industry has to throw at us. So I would like to thank each of you to be here, and you gave us time. So that's it.
Thank you everyone. Thank you, David, Manu, Damika, Sisi, and Mandeep, for taking time out.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed. We really thoroughly enjoyed, and there was a lot of interest from the audience, with basically reflecting from the questions. I hope everyone took something out of it. I learned personally a few things, and I thank you once again, and look forward to seeing you, interacting with you in the coming days. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.